Hi everybody and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine. I've got the esteemed Scott Gibbs to my right, probably your left, and Zellum Nell. Caught your show, Zellum. I just wonder what glasses you guys watch the rugby through, because...
Sounded like you were ungrateful to me. that the Boks played with such vigour.
Yeah, I was a bit concerned. I don't know if you came across in the show.
No, not really.
Didn't
no.
really come across.
No.
Yeah.
Ungrateful is probably a good word, I think.
No. Look, as I said in that show, I mean, I love to watch the Springboks win. So I've got my concerns around whether they can continue to win if they endeavour to play such an expansive game. But it is easy on the eyes.
Had some very interesting comments on your show, though it got good viewership.
So
obviously.
many fans.
Yeah, there are.
Loved what we said.
Yeah, I've got two, Mum and Dad. You picked them by 5. They won by 7, and you're concerned.
Yeah, so the main point we made there at the beginning of the show, right at the top, we said 10 out of 10 for the result. Excellent result. You can't take anything away from the world's best team beating the number 2 team, who they haven't beaten in 3 previous attempts. So fantastic result.
Yeah.
Bottom line is very obvious. South Africa produces the most ferocious forwards in the world in an abundance that nobody else can do.
And I think that's becoming more clear over the last 2 World Cups.
Yeah.
And
we won back-to-back World Cups. So we can physically manhandle anybody.
Yeah.
We don't need to experiment with a game plan that takes us away from that, especially when that game plan is the model that is used by teams that can't physically front up.
like Japan.
Like Japan.
Yeah.
They have to find a way around. You have to play smart. That's their only route to success. It's a longer route to success than physically going north-south.
Yeah.
And so I think all of us would like to see the Boks be a little bit more creative in the strike zone, but to be playing a game where you're striking, or you're keeping the ball from 60 meters out, I think takes away from what is South Africa's traditional strength. That's the gist of it.
Yeah, listen, I don't think that the DNA of South African Bok rugby and how it's been played over the last number of years is such a departure. The fact is, I think that is so wholly ingrained in them. This is just an extension or an evolution of, the coaching appointments. You bring someone in like Tony Brown. I mean, yes, I think that opening gambit, heads up rugby, bold, went from left to right, right to left. But what impressed me more, not because of the execution, but literally was the depth and squareness that they possessed in it, and I think that will encourage Tony Brown.
Definitely.
Because in international rugby, don't care who you listen to, you can never be deep enough. It's been the great hallmarks of all the exciting attacking sides. So if that is added to the toolbox, along with the mallet and the bludgeon that is the inimitable toolbox that Rassie possesses, and you bring in some more finesse and nuance, and a scalpel or two, then I think that's only great for Bok rugby.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Scott, because when you look at the Boks, and certainly they're going to get a lot of go forward ball, and games are won and lost in the forwards. So a bit more finesse and a bit more creativity.
But for a long time, Kevin, the criticism that lies at the feet of Rassie is that this team is too one-dimensional, and we are trying to tell you what you can't do.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they've been so successful at suffocating, strangling, and using the power play to their advantage, and then the continuation or the emergence of what the bomb squad is doing to the clock, to the energy levels, etc. It's almost that shot of adrenaline in the second half where other sides haven't got that.
No, by a long way.
By a long way.
I mean,
and the fact is now that, like it or not, in the enviable position that Bok rugby and Bok rugby supporters are, there's only one true heavyweight in world rugby.
Yes.
And it is you guys.
Not me.
Well,
We'll get to Wales later.
It is the Boks. Because of the dissemination, in the world ranking from 3 to 10. I mean, everybody's is in a new paradigm shift.
Yeah. Look
New
at
coaching, new players, new pieces. But the Boks stand alone in the pantheon of greats at the moment.
Yeah,
And they're the standard bearers for everything. If you go on, if you go on rings or medals, they're the standard bearers now. So that's what comes with pressure. Is there is a reluctance in South Africa for change.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that in a sporting or a political thing, is that progress has no patience. You have to understand that. I think Rassie's been misunderstood. I think he's an incredibly intelligent rugby manager, rugby coach, a real player, and you're seeing that because he just extrapolates value out of his players time after time after time.
Well, you certainly are the Jordan Peterson of rugby analysis. And what I took out of the game was, one, Ireland, the score flattered Ireland. If Pollard had been the Pollard that we know, there would have been scoreboard pressure. I felt that Ireland defended very well, and they are a good defensive team. So to me, the bookies had it at 8.5, plus minus. They were right. And so I wouldn't worry about a 7-point win. I think it could have been more. But credit has to go. Like you said, I'm not worried about the Boks because it has Rassie Erasmus. Yeah. I think he's adaptable. He gets the best out of his players. And that team, whatever they're trying to...
And he's no one-trip pony. He's not. No. I mean, a lot of other coaches that have credentials and maybe have, a different win-loss percentage, they just carry a lot of luggage with them, I think Rassie is open to interpretation. He's open to new ideas, and he's risky enough to say, no, let's try it. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it emboldens us to become a better football team across the park. And by picking different individuals that give us the best opportunity to win on the day. Yeah. That's what I like about his philosophy.
Well, it's hard to argue with someone that's won the World Cup twice. British and Irish Lions tour, won that, and beat a team that he hasn't beaten for 3 years. So it seems to me that that the Boks right now are a legitimate three-peat contender.
Yeah, for sure, and there's plenty more to show. We've talked on shows about the emerging talent and the box office talent. That is Sasha and many others coming through the ranks now. But the fact is, when you have talent like that, how do you use it? You can't give a player, Sasha, an opportunity and then just say, I need you to play this way because it's our way. You need to play in a system. Yeah. It's like, that is his genius. Is optimizing talent and not playing within yourself. And that's where you get the greatest expression of athletic talent, and it happens to be on your side.
Yeah, and when you take the holistic picture of the Boks and where they were, because what were they, 5th, 6th in the world?
They dropped down to 7th, I think.
Was it 7th when they lost to Italy?
Yeah, I think they went all the way
down. And then
down.
Wales? I didn't even celebrate when Wales beat them after they lost to Italy.
Now.
Huh? I would now, yeah. But, so the game that I saw, I was quite impressed with what I saw. Obviously, a bit of ring rust. You saw Kwaka being unusually unusual in a couple of mistakes.
He had a couple of muff punts, as they would say, innit?
Yeah.
Maybe his hooter and the shadow of the hooter, took the eyes off the ball. Sorry, Kwaka, I'm only kidding. I'm his biggest fan.
I know you are.
And he made up for it. But I mean, there were... in a game like that where there is a lot of pressure on performance, and we're in this results-based industry, performance. Yeah. That one or two guys are going to step up, but I thought it was a handful of guys that really stepped up. I mean, look at Khaleesi, for instance. Yeah. I mean, the whole he's fat. Is he bollocks? I mean, he just showed you that class is permanent. I thought Delende, again had just, a game that just tells you exactly the type of talent he is. He doesn't have to be smashing the brick wall continually. There's a lot of finesse with him. There's nuance. That is just, it is beautiful to watch because he's buying time and creating space for others to play. That is just the definition of a good first centre,
Yeah, which is probably missed by the average fan.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's easy to look at, like, I thought Franco Mostert again was just a Mr. Reliable.
Yeah.
Very little defect in his game, does everything right. But of course it's underpinned with ethic, work rate, and game craft.
Yeah, no, I agree. For me, I enjoyed the game. I thought it was a great physical encounter and a lot to be celebrated rather than be concerned.
Oh my gosh, for sure, yeah. And I don't know what you think. Zelly, is that, the fact is that when you dominate a quarter of the game like they did, or sterilise a quarter of the game, the first 20 minutes, where Ireland couldn't really get a shot off. They couldn't get a system going because they were under a pump. You take that chunk of time off the clock. You're only left with an hour then to, reshape. How do we get ourselves back into the game? And they showed enormous resilience.
Yeah.
They showed enormous experience in game craft for the Murray try under the post to kind of create that scoreboard separation to be a little bit closer. So again, this is a side that knows that when they're not beaten, they play to the very end.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great. I mean, what more do we want from a test match, for God's sake? So for all of the critics that didn't like the result or the performance, I
not
say
pointing fingers.
I say to you, just from the outset, kudos to SuperSport and their match day director to really put the global feed, out there where you could see Loftus in its full colour. And then the anthem renditions were incredibly moving. It just, it got you on the edge of your seat, which is the first thing you want to do as a sports fan. You want to be gripped. You want to lean into something.
Yeah.
And even I was moved by it. And I'm not even a South African, I know what it is to be South African or to be a Springbok.
And you're not easily moved, Scott.
No, and I'm like, it was teed up to be. This is just going to be a great test match.
Blockbuster.
And it fucking was.
Yeah. No. What do we see for the next test? I mean, taking into account what Mark and Z said.
Well, it's interesting because, what do the Boks do? I mean, there's no reversion to a type because that was a great win. He will unpick X, Y, and Z. What went right for us, what didn't go so well. There will be some concerns on defense. There will be concerns on we got a little bit sloppy and lazy at the breakdown, maybe because we stretched a little bit. But the fact is, I don't think there was an inherent weakness there. Next weekend is a totally different game. Game theory, but might be totally different because it's going to be different at sea level and or in maybe a more humid environment where the ball is slightly less receptive to quicker, slicker play.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that Ireland would want to be on the front foot, creating shapes, putting pressure, getting speed of ruck ball, and being more of a threat in the opening quarter for sure. But it's not. It's very hard to do that on the back of last weekend because, you are banged up a little. There's some guys now will be, light on their feet early doors this week, for selection or not for selection. But the fact is, you can't win this second test match by just watching film alone and not being out on the practice field. You have to do some run-throughs. So it'll be interesting to see. We have to wait till Thursday before Farrell picks his side and see if there's any difference at half-back, which there probably will be, and or in the midfield or tight five and back row. So,
what do you see the changes to the Boks?
Well, I'm hearing there may be a change at half-back or certainly at standoff. Outside of that, probably very little, I would think. I mean, you could contest that, apart from the 2 muff punts with Quacha and a couple of steals, that, maybe the back row balance might be different, and that'll be a call this week.
I thought that.
But the intensity will be there for sure. And I mean, there's, Kings Park, another great, another great cauldron of international test match arenas that can get loud. And this is the thing, see, when it gets loud, like it does in Loftus, even your hearing gets dampened when you start. When you put under pressure and you're trying to make good calls at line out. If you haven't got it right at scrum, the breakdown, the communication, it does break down.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because this is where Rassi comes in. Rassi will go and practice somewhere, and he'll turn the volume on.
Yeah. To
try and recreate what match day situational football looks like. Ireland might go to Kings Park now, run around, and the gamekeepers there just sweeping up, getting ready for Saturday. So. Even these are the little minutiae that you have to think about in game prep.
Well, I think Rassi's a master at minutiae when it comes to rugby preparation and all things rugby. I think that Zell, listening to your podcast with Mark, one of the points that I felt was a good point was looking at that style of play, if that is something they're committed to. I'm not convinced that they are. I think it's a good experiment, and we'll see how that develops. What was Monty Lebock? Why not? Would he be better suited to that type of rugby?
Totally. I mean, as we said, and I think it's obvious, definitely, if you're going to play an expansive game, you want your playmakers there. But to dispel the mystery, they have actually picked an unchanged 23. So everybody that played last week is playing again, same position. So 1 to 23 identical. So same lineup. It'll be interesting to see whether they go again with the same plan. And how much they tweak it. But from the Irish perspective, you kind of got to think that they are going to play a little bit more of a traditional test match rugby with Conor Murray at halfback, probably hoisting a few well-placed kicks. And it'll be interesting to see which team they select in terms of does Osborne go again at fullback, and what do they do there?
Yeah, and to be fair, Ireland are a good side.
Great
side. It should be another great test match. I don't see as many points being scored because traditionally Kings Park isn't a place where you see lots of points. I was very surprised that it got to 47.
Yeah, I suppose the challenge for Rassi in that instant, I'll come on to Farrell in the second, is that at this moment in time, he's just blessed with the paradox of choice, isn't it? Because he has an abundance of weapons that he can choose from, which affect or have an effect on the way that their situation rugby is played.
Yeah.
And Saturday now he will say, well, this is game one again. It's a must-win thing. We need to assert ourselves. We need to be the aggressor. We need to be on the front foot. And I will not tolerate X, Y, and Z, X, epsilon. No sloppiness. I want us to be far more combative at the breakdown and or, in the counter-ruck. So all of those will be highlighted somewhere where they'll have an idea as to, where they think they need to improve. But it's by no means a given that they go out there. They just need to, read the field again. And that's what good situational footballers do.
And who do you think would have taken more of a beating out of that game from the physicality in the first game?
I mean, the Boks were ferocious when they were organised, but there were large points in that game where they were reactive, and I suppose in those situations they would have struggled. But I mean, at scrum time it was dominance, and the only reason we didn't really see a lot of the maul was because they were playing a lot of ball. So, yeah, I think it was. I mean, Ireland are no slouches, but I think South Africa was in ascendancy there. Yeah.
And that's it. Ascendancy is it's a great word, isn't it? But it's kind of intangible on the field because you can see it, but you can't feel it and taste it when you're on the field.
Yeah.
It's just something, and that's what lulled the Boks into. We are the more dominant side. We are on the front foot. We are trying to create scoreboard separation, which is pressure, but yet we didn't execute enough for that to take over. And course, conversely, you strip it back and go, maybe territory should have been adhered to more. Maybe revert into Faf's kicking game should have returned more to the fold. So I think maybe on Saturday it's more of a balanced outlook on where that plays to their strengths.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how they do play. Where do you see the game going on Saturday?
You're asking me.
Yeah.
You want to score?
Well, you're the concerned. You're more concerned.
You're the concerned citizen
You
in
want to
in the
score on
Western
this.
Cape here. Come on.
So look, they've picked the same team, and my guess is that they do revert to more of what they are traditionally known for. I think it's a bit of mind games with Ireland at this stage because they'll be thinking, what do we prepare for defensively? I think the Boks control the game again and they win again. I think it probably will be a bit of a lower scoring game, but probably close to the same margin of victory. I don't see. The reality is this isn't the Ireland team that was dominant against the All Blacks and really was worth their weight in gold at a stage. They are missing Keenan. They are missing Mac Hansen. They are missing Jamison Gibson Park. They've lost the guy who they said was their starting scrum half last week. They've got a 35-year-old potentially starting at scrum half this week. And there are question marks around that tight five. There are still some young guys coming through. Joe McCarthy, I think, is a great prospect and a really talented player. But I think they're in a state of flux, this Ireland team. So the Boks are the more established team. And last week, great that they came away with the win and a lot of work-ons because there'll be massive motivation to finish the series with a win now and sweep Ireland and put this whole thing to bed. So I'm going to give it to the Boks by 6 points. Probably a 22-16.
Will you be disappointed if they win by 6?
I wasn't disappointed in the result. I was disappointed in what we are doing tactically. But so no, I think
I know.
I think the
You've
Boks
taken a
will
beating in this podcast,
Loving it.
and you got a great sense of humor. So thanks for that.
I'm going to say that I think there was a lot of low body shots last week. You know, if you bring in the kind of Boks into now, I think there was a bit of tenderizing happened. There's a lot of sore bodies. There's a few bent out of shape. That's because, you know, in all fairness to Ireland, they absorbed an enormous amount of punishment.
Yeah.
And you can't argue that.
No.
But the fact is that when it comes to rugby craft and resilience, you know, they can go the distance. They've just got to find the game within the minutes, and they have to be conscious that, you know, from the kickoff, they have to dominate each small collision, big moment, and convert that into pressure, and actually apply pressure in certain areas, and those areas would be again around halfback, and maybe on the flanks. But Farrell is a very, 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 very good coach.
Yeah.
And he will not use this as an excuse because we may be losing or we haven't got the availability of some frontline players. I don't think that shifts his thinking one iota. I just think he knows that they would be disappointed. They need to find a pep in their step, as they say, for this game Saturday, and have an enormous half an hour where they're the aggressor, where they put the Boks on the back foot, where they put points on the board. And then there's different complexion. But the fact is that, sadly, the bomb squad is such a noticeable intangible in the game now. It's bloody hard work to think that after 55 minutes, you see that, you see the wave of players coming in and you go, my God, I got to keep doing it. Really is demoralizing more than anything, even before they've swung a punch,
Yeah, no, for sure. It must be so demoralizing to look at the fit lads that are coming on for the Boks and as good as anybody they're replacing, so to speak.
But as test matches go last weekend, I thought it was totally engrossing, enthralling. Created test match theatre that is great. Created some jeopardy. There was some issues, there were some calls that could have gone either way. But isn't that what's great about test match rugby? I mean, none of it was dull or boring, and I don't want the Boks to become dull and boring and predictable. Let's bring a different aspect to their counter-attack, their phase play. Because that's why Tony Brown has been brought into this game is not to overawe the players with more information, but it's better information. and it's better skill set. And as I said, with this depth and squareness that I saw on Saturday, I think ideology, that's a great platform to go forward into the rugby championship with, because when you're away in Perth or you're away in Argentina, you sometimes got to dig deep to find something that's a little bit alien to you.
Yeah.
And I think having this now in the kind of armory will only stand them in good stead as they go forward and evolve and become better at what they do.
What what score are you predicting? I mean, I know it's Tuesday, but let's.
Yeah, it's still early Tuesday. I do see the Boks winning this, and I think this could exceed last weekend in scoring, because I just think I see enough that there's, both sides will leak some scores. I'll see 30 points to 22 to the Boks.
I mean, that's high scoring, but
it is high
you
scoring.
can totally see that happening.
Yeah, I see the Boks because they weren't at their best last week, but it was a good game. I see the score being around 28 to 13. I see the Boks being more dominant.
Yeah.
Less ring rust, and certainly Pollard not as rusty as he was, and especially that he got the kicking lesson from you guys in the video.
Yeah.
So, the Boks should be able to see off Ireland. I think double digits, 12 plus.
Great.
Yeah, but I won't be disappointed if it's 10 or 9. Anyway, guys, thanks for the show, and Zell, thanks for being
great.
a
Thanks
good
for having
sport.
me, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin.